Spring 2009 on TSN is brought to you by the new Q horsepower from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.
This nationwide?
Actually on the Sports Network in Canada.
Okay, cool.
All right.
I can't sell nothing over in Canada.
It's all right.
Punchos! 1 for 5, 2 for 8.
You know, it's 600 miles and 400 laps. It doesn't get any longer on the NASCAR circuit. And this week, we are in the heart of NASCAR country, Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, TSN, of course, carries the series, so you already know who won this race, but the race is not our focus. You know, NASCAR is popular for one big reason. They drive the same cars that you and I do. Okay, maybe ours has less horsepower and a little more trunk space, but you know, NASCAR figures they've got about 75 million loyal fans, and that's where that old adage, win on Sunday, sell on Monday, comes from. And you know, that accounts for anything on the car, including the lubricants. Now, Quaker State Pennzoil has been a partner with motoring since 1988, and some of the top drivers on this circuit and champions, like Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, run on their products. So this week, we thought we'd go behind the scenes, get a few maintenance tips from the experts, and also find out if all the work being done out here is going to help you and me and our vehicle.
Well, this is the longest race that we have of the year. It's 600 miles, it's tough, it's grueling, it's hard on the engines, and you got to have the right lubricants. And some of the work that we do here, we put these engines and our lubricants under so much stress with high RPMs and such heat, then Pennzoil can go back and hopefully develop better oils for the street.
In racing, we have the opportunity to look at our products under what could be the worst case scenario, the harshest conditions that an engine or a transmission, whatever part of the vehicle, harshest conditions that it would see.
In talking to some of the Pennzoil folks earlier today, up till a couple years ago, they were using the same stuff that you could buy right off the shelf. The same stuff that you're buying right off the shelf was going in Jeff Gordon's DuPont Chevrolet and in Kevin Harvick's Pennzoil Chevrolet. So it's the exact same stuff. This is their best test ground.
We get the feedback from the engineers that look at these things on a daily basis, and they're able to tell us what works, what doesn't work. And it's great feedback. At our research center in Houston, Texas, we call it West Hollow. That's the location where our formulators are making not only our products that we use in our over-the-counter lubricants, but we have people within the same team that are making our specialty formulations for NASCAR teams and our other professional racers.
You know, every year it changes. Just like cars, this is not just great testing for motor oils, but for manufacturers of all automotive products.
It was said years ago in NASCAR that if you win on Sunday, you sell on Monday, and the same still holds true today. The more times you can spend up front, the more times you can get exposure for your sponsors. I've heard different numbers, but right around 75% of the people that come to these tracks base their purchasing decisions on the logos that are on these race cars. That is buying power right there. A lot of times, whoever does better is going to sell more products at the end of the day.
You watch a commercial, you think that every product was number one, but hey, you pay for the spot, you can say what you want to say. But earlier this year, Quaker State Pennzoil held a news conference in downtown Toronto, and they were doing a lot of bragging.
We turned over our information to our statistician and to our legal department, and we were able to comfortably say with 95% statistical confidence that our product provides 2 times better wear protection than the industry standard. And what we did a few months ago, as you may have heard, we were able to come up with a campaign where we were able to let everybody know that Quaker State is unsurpassed in wear protection. Part of that's based on what we've been able to learn at the racetrack, but our actual claims were built on industry-approved, industry-accepted Sequence 4A testing.
We have strong brands, long heritage brands, Quaker State and Pennzoil, and consumers expect the very best, and we strive to bring them the best products that we can.
Speed kills. but only in the pharmaceutical sense. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
On this edition of Test Drive, we take a look at the Lincoln MKT. Now, whilst it doesn't look like it beneath the bright work, this vehicle is very heavily based on the Ford Flex. One of the more onerous sides of the automotive business is something called badge engineering. This involves taking an existing model and transforming it into something new. In many cases, the strategy backfires. Think Subaru 92X. For the manufacturer, it's a great way of padding the bottom line as it splits the R&D cost between two nameplates. However, when it's done well, it works. Up front, this MKT has been very well thought through. To begin with, you get materials that are off the top shelf. You'll also find fully articulated seats, power tilt and telescopic steering wheel adjustment, and power adjustable pedals. The importance of these things, when they're combined, a driver of just about any stature can set the right driving position, push a button, and it's stored in memory. Now, if you do consider this car, take the Elite package. Among other things, it brings a very good navigation system and a superb audio system. It not only has 10 gigabytes of space on the hard drive to store your own music collection, it comes with 14 speakers and it's THX2 certified. It really does fill the cabin with symphonic sound. The MKT tested arrived with Ford's 3.5-litre V6 EcoBoost engine. Using direct injection and 2 turbochargers, this engine twists out an effortless 350 pound-feet of torque and 355 horsepower. These numbers give the large and heavy MKT, all 2,300 kilograms of it, a remarkable turn of speed. The launch off the line is crisp, the mid-range is strong, and there's enough left at the top end to pass a slower vehicle. What's more remarkable is that the EcoBoost engine accomplishes all of this while sipping the same amount of fuel as the MKT's base 3.7-litre V6 engine. I say remarkable because of the boost in power. You get an extra 87 horsepower and 83 pound-feet of torque for nothing. Other than the cost factor, the base engine makes little sense. If you do get bumped from the front row, this middle row in the MKT is not a bad place to end up. In this vehicle, the seats are exceptionally comfortable and there's a power lumbar support. They're also heated and cooled, and you get your own climate control settings. You also get a footrest for the weary traveller. The last thing, and I really did like this, right here is a refrigerator. It's 40% faster than the fridge in your house at getting popped down to the desirable temperature. The power is relayed to the road through a 6-speed manumatic and a decent all-wheel drive system. Both work very well with the EcoBoost engine. Dropping a gear via the paddle shifter sees the engine rev match, and when launched with authority, the MKT's all-wheel drive system limits unwanted wheel spin. The lone downside is that you cannot use the paddle shifters to initiate a shift when in drive. You must first shift into the manual mode and then pull the shifter, all of which limits its effectiveness. When it comes to cargo capacity, this MKT is a lot like other 3-row vehicles. With the 3rd row seat up, there really isn't that much cargo capacity. Fold the seat down, however, and it grows to about 40 cubic feet, and if you fold the center row down, it goes up to about 75 cubic feet. The one thing I don't like about the MKT, the sight lines to the rear. To begin with, large oversized D-pillars, and this chunk right here, that's the wiper motor, and it eats into the rear view mirror and what you can see through it. There is a saving grace, and it's found in 2 additional features. The first one is the blind spot warning system. Whenever a car sneaks into your blind spot, an amber light lights up on either of the door mirrors to warn you. The other thing, this backup camera combined with the sonar sensors, you can back this thing into a parking spot with precision. I don't like the blind spots, but you can live with them. Ride-wise, the MKT is every bit a Lincoln as it's comfortably compliant. The upside is that the suspension does a good job of limiting the amount of body roll through a corner. While this is not the sort of vehicle that spurs the driver on, it is reassuring to know that it can handle a spirited drive should the need arise. Entering this test, I half expected to find a posh Ford Flex. Nothing wrong with that, other than the fact it would have been a very big, badge-engineered disappointment. As it turns out, this MKT is a poised and polished ride that can stand on its own merits. It's time to update Motoring's long-term Mazda 3. The one thing that came through loud and clear in the test drive was just how well this car handles, especially considering it's an affordable ride. Living with this car has taught that its beauty is more than a transient thing. Flog it into a fast corner and it hangs in well beyond the compact car norm, which leaves the driver beaming. Factor in the refined feel and feedback afforded by the steering, and a shopping errand becomes something to relish. On that note, the electronic stability control system, well, it saved my bacon. A slippery road might have brought some bent sheet metal had it not been for that electronic overseer. On our next update, we'll take a look at the one thing that's becoming, well, rather annoying.
Interesting that the first vehicle they're launching out of bankruptcy is an SUV, something that, of course, a lot of people complained got them into this situation in the first place.
It is so quiet that it really surprises you when you get in the vehicle how refined it is as well. And that's the type of thing I think General Motors has to do. It has to have a few wow factors, frankly, that people are surprised by that says, gee, I better give them another look, because for that price, there's a lot of vehicle there.
General Motors has done a good job. I think the Chevrolet Equinox is up against it, but I think they're bringing to the table really what the consumer is looking for in a vehicle.
Make sure you check out the Motoring website at motoringtv.com. You can watch any program you may have missed. In fact, how about a trip down memory lane and see what we were driving as far back as 1988. Check out our blog, our photo gallery, and much more. It's all there at motoringtv.com. You know, during a long NASCAR season, you can imagine just how much motor oil these cars go through. Well, a few years ago, we dropped in on Safety Clean in Kitchener, Ontario, where they recycle old motor oil. Well, Safety Clean is providing the same service here at the racetrack.
The Busch cars or the Nationwide cars and the Sprint Cup cars, they'll change the oil twice in a weekend. That's anywhere from 15 to 16 quarts of oil. So what they'll do is they'll go out, they'll run the cars in practice, they'll drain them, then they'll do their qualifying run, they'll drain them, and then they'll get them ready to run the race. So what we do is we have these recycle centers all over the country in all our racetracks. And the guys know when they're done with the oil to bring it back to dump it in here, and then when they're done, we'll bring a truck in on Monday morning and we'll clean this all out. And then that oil will go to our refinery in East Chicago. In qualifying, they'll run a lighter weight oil. The engineers have figured out that they can produce more horsepower, and you know, being on the pole or being on the front row is very important. Now, for longevity, they'll run a heavier weight oil. The kind of same thing we do in our car. You know, to make it 600 miles, they're going to have to do that. For us as a consumer and an everyday driver, if we change our oil like they did, we would easily be able to go 400,000 miles, no problem. When you think about it, is the only thing protecting moving parts in the engine. There is nothing else. So yeah, is it vital to change oil? Sure. And what does it cost to change oil these days? I would say change your oil every month.
You may have noticed Charlie's nickname was Cheeseburger, and it's very simple why they call him that. That's all he eats. That's all he eats. Cheeseburgers. All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardiner.
Hey Brad, there's a lot of things that attract people to NASCAR, and you know, colorful characters driving and in pit crews involved with the sport are just one of the areas of attraction for many of the NASCAR fans. And I'm one of those fans. I love to go to the races, usually go to one per year, or try to go to one event per year. and I watch lots of the events on Sunday afternoons or Saturday nights on TV. And one of my favorite nicknames of one of the crew chiefs, his name's Michael McSwain, but he's usually referred to as Fatback McSwain, and I guess maybe he had a few too many cheeseburgers. So Cheeseburger Charlie's definitely got some good competition in the nickname category. But you know, part of the attraction of NASCAR for me is seeing what those engineers and crew chiefs get out of what is loosely derived from a stock block V8 engine. They start out with a pushrod V8, 355 cubic inches, or roughly 5.7 liters of displacement. 2 valves per cylinder, so there's no multi-valve technology. They don't use overhead cams, they're all pushrod engines. No fuel injection, they have a carburetor on that engine. Now, they use high-performance special parts in order to be able to turn those engines 9,000 RPM and get in excess of 800 horsepower out of that V8 engine and make it stay together for 500 miles at wide open throttle. So they've got to be really good. They also have a huge capacity of crankcase oil, about 6 or 7 times the crankcase capacity that your average car or truck would have. They need that much oil in order to keep that volume of oil cool for the duration of the race. They use engine oil coolers as well, all kinds of other components to make sure that engine stays together for that 500 miles, because of course they've got to finish the race to win the race. It's no good if that thing blows up at the halfway point. But one of the other neat things about NASCAR that I really like is that those crew chiefs and those mechanics working on those cars, they never give up. If you watch open wheel racing like IndyCar or Formula One, the littlest problem with the car, if it brushes the wall or touches another car, spins out or anything like that, they just walk away and throw their hands up, don't even try to do anything. If you watched this year's Indy 500 and you saw the start, Marco Andretti's car had a little bit of a mishap, and they guys just walked away from the car. They didn't even try and do anything. Later in the race, they finally got around to doing something and got him back on the track, but they basically gave up right from the get-go. Those NASCAR guys, they never give up. They're always wrenching on that car, banging on it, duct taping it, changing parts, getting it back together and getting it out there. They may not win the race, but they'll finish the race come hell or high water by putting that thing back together with anything and everything at their disposal. And you know what, when you're a fan, you go out to the track, you want to see those guys trying hard. You don't want to see them just walk away. So that's just one of the many attractions of NASCAR. But you know what, getting 850 horsepower out of basically a stock block V8 does it for me. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 2009.
My job basically is to tell the story of the race and to keep the pit reporters abreast of what's going on the track. You know, there's 3 or 4 pit reporters that are scattered up and down pit road, and they're listening to the different drivers' broadcast, the communication between the spotter, the crew chief, and the driver. But, you know, at any given time, they may not necessarily be listening to your driver. So my job is to listen to the communication, hear what the driver's saying about the car, the changes that they're probably going to make on the next pit stop, and then communicate to the pit reporters, both radio and TV as well, so they'll tell our story. One of the things that fans really enjoy most about the sport is the fact that any of them can rent a scanner or buy a scanner and get a list of every driver's radio channel, and they can listen in, and you know, it's like being in the huddle, for lack of a better term.
So many different great human interest stories that people at home never learn about, and I think that's the big association with NASCAR and the fan at home, because they're people. And they have so many great histories of where they've come from. Some guys came from the military. Some guys build hot rods before they got to NASCAR. Some guys, you know, they started out at a local short track and got a big break and came to NASCAR. And he helps really deliver those stories to us so then we can bring them to the folks at home.
Here in NASCAR, it's all about being open and allowing the teams to see what the other teams are doing. So the pit stalls are literally side by side. There's maybe 4 to 6 feet between the different cars, to the point of where crewmen sometimes have to look over and see what the other guy's doing before they start jacking the car or doing something to it, because they'll be in the other guy's way. So again, the idea is transparency and to let everybody know what everybody else is doing and to try and minimize the cheating.
There are some people, we call them the members of the Anti-Destination League, who think the entire world is a speed bump. They think that if the speed limit is 100 kilometers an hour, then why are car companies allowed to build cars that can go 250 kilometers an hour. Well, there's a certain internal logic to that in their twisted little view of the world. But the key word in that phrase is if the speed limit is 100K. Because it isn't everywhere, as you probably know. It's 120 in some countries, 130 in some countries, and in some parts of Germany you can still go as fast as you want. The fact is, the progress of mankind has pretty much been measured by how fast we can go. We first learned how to walk. That's about 6 kilometers an hour. Then we figured out how to run. That's about 20 kilometers an hour if you're in good shape, me notwithstanding. Then we found out horses can run faster than we can, so we jumped on the back. And then we found out that cars go faster than horses, trains go faster than cars, planes go faster than trains, and pretty soon rocket ships will go faster than airplanes. The fact is, we're in a hurry. We want to get places in a hurry. We want to get there safely, we want to get there efficiently, and we want to get there green as possible as well. The fact is, our fastest highways happen to be also the safest and the greenest and the most efficient. So if you folks want to stop the world and get off, don't let the screen door hit you on your way off of our planet. I'm Jim Kenty.
We're in a rain delay right now, but before we go, I just want to tell you, earlier today somebody asked me what my favorite kind of car racing was. I wasn't sure at the time, but I know now, and it is NASCAR racing, and it's quite simple why. I have covered a lot of sporting events in my life, but let me tell you something, I've never seen the sport as accommodating as they are here, from the owner down through to the crew. They love this sport, and they welcome not only the fans, but the media too, and that is really refreshing. Another thing I learned while I was here is that if I can only do one thing to maintain my car, it's going to be changing the oil. If it's good enough for these guys, it's good enough for me. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
You really got to be serious about doing it. You got to think that this vehicle is really important to our lineup, and that's why we want to bring it into the marketplace now and establish it. So new models are a big deal, but they also provide the foundation for how you're going to grow in the future. And our belief fully is the manufacturer that can sustain itself at this time in the market is going to do really well when the market starts to recover.
Motoring 2009 on TSN has been brought to you by the new Q Horsepower from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.